This year's Minecraft Live just dropped, and while the presentation is more of a focus on Minecraft as a franchise rather than just the main game specifically, the sentiment I've been seeing online directly after the event seemed to be largely negative. I think I understand where people are coming from here, as I actually do to some extent share their sentiment about what was shown for 1.20 and how it was a little underwhelming. However, after some research and finding clarifications and gaining an understanding of the decisions that the team at Mojang have made and why they made them, I think a lot of players are being unreasonable with their criticisms. I may not address everything the main conversation has been about, but I do want to talk about 1.20 and why I'm actually very hopeful for the update, and why I don't believe it'll actually be any worse in quality or smaller in scale to an update like 1.19. And yeah, that's really the first major point of contention I think many have, that there's just not enough content to be shown. I empathize with the statement, and in fact while watching the presentation, I really couldn't help but think that they were showing the side course to the update's main course. To compare this to 1.19, it made me feel like we were focused more on the goat horns and the boat chests of the update, rather than the mangrove swamps and the deep darks of the update. The small things, the details, rather than the big things, the big picture. And, well, it turns out that might be true to some extent. After Minecraft Live, King B-Dogs, a major gameplay developer for Minecraft who was in charge of the Deep Dark last update, went to Twitter to clear some misconceptions he was seeing about the game, including the lack of features showcased. The features shown at Minecraft Live are not the only features in the 1.20 update. We have more planned. What was different this year is that we are only showing features at Live that are nearly 100% complete and ready to snapshot, so that we don't overpromise and underdeliver. So there's for sure going to be more features added to 1.20 than what was shown, but well, how is that any excuse for not showing more? Last year they showed way more of the game, and that wasn't ready for snapshots yet. Well, that's actually the exact problem they're looking to address. A lot of players got really upset when it was revealed that fireflies would no longer be added to the game after the team had learned that fireflies are poisonous to mini frogs, and they designed the game around that. Or about how bundles were shown, but they ended up ultimately being shelved because they couldn't find an intuitive way to get them to work on touchscreens. Why would Mojang show a feature and then not add it to the game? And the truth is, they're simply showing what they had. Concept arts for birch forests and fireflies, potential for this and that and the other, but ultimately they changed what was being developed for the good of the game and the game that they wanted to put out. Mojang actually began to focus the Wild update more on the Deep Dark at the direction of players. So, on top of players complaining about missing features that they were promised, they also complained that the Wild update wasn't wild enough. A point I'd actually kind of agree with. It'd make more sense to me to name it after ancient cities, which King B-Dogs actually agrees with. So they're being extremely conservative when it comes to what they're willing to show off, and they're refusing to even name the update at all in case something like that happens again. Despite what many may tell you, Mojang actually cares a lot about what players have to say, but there's no solution when they're put in a double bind like this. Either it's show more work that you have and receive backlash for not owning up to your promises if those plans change, or show less and have people complain that the update seems underwhelming, and they chose the latter. So if you agree with their decision, that's ultimately up to you, but I think there's a lot more nuance to the whole situation here than a lot of players are giving it. So we'll see new features and content announced as they finish prototyping and they're ready to be released in the snapshots, as all of the features in the 1.20 announcement actually are. For snapshots, players won't actually even feel entitled to anything shown, I feel. And it also allows Mojang to have a much more spontaneous and free-flowing development cycle that can respond to demand, instead of being completely set in stone despite any player feedback they may receive. On top of that, they won't have to risk disappointing anyone by showing content that ends up on the cutting room floor. Side note, I personally agree it's okay to show content that may end up on the cutting room floor, but I do agree with not naming the update, so that in case we go from wild to skulk again, for example, Mojang is prepared for something like that. I think no matter what they choose, communication should be more clear in anticipating potential reactions that players may have. The rationale behind the decisions being made should probably be in the presentation itself and not on Twitter, but that's beside the point. But that explanation doesn't feel right, does it? 1.19 was the Wild update, and it kind of turned into the Ancient City update, but the Ancient Cities were an elaboration on planned features that were shown at that update's Minecraft Live event. Surely they can give us an overview, at least, right? Are these really just 4 random disconnected features? Are there really no core themes the team is trying to go into the next update with? Well, King B-Dogs actually addresses this too. some insights into the 1.20 update and its new approach this year. The update does have a theme. We're just intentionally deciding not to give it a name so that we can shape the update with the community and give it a name that fits its contents. Which a user on Twitter replies, "I feel a theme should have been given, but just not a name. There is a theme and that's cool, but right now everything we have shown was very random. Giving a theme outline could give players a better idea of what the update will entail." Which King B-Dogs then replies, "The theme is essentially self-expression, representation, and storytelling. These are all things that enable the player to be more creative in their world. So while features may feel random, they fit these principles. Hanging signs, for example, absolutely aid players in their storytelling. As well as directly addressing the misconception that 1.20 doesn't have a theme designers are following, I think these comments do a really good job at also hinting at why we were shown the kind of features that we were shown and why these features are in the game in the first place. I do strongly feel that 1.20 will have a substantial amount of content comparative to 1.19, but I fear players may also misunderstand why things like working bookshelves or camels are being added in the first place, as opposed to something more tangible like a new dimension or end expansion. Ignore the scale differences here. And the reason for that is 1.20's themes of player expression, culture representation, and storytelling. I'm guilty of this as well, but I think a lot of Minecraft superfans tend to think about the game in a very utilitarian way. Sure, that's neat and all, but what possibilities do these features unlock, a player might say? How do they make me stronger? How do they challenge me? How do they give me new places to explore or add depth to the mechanical systems of the game? While those aspects of the game are extremely important, another important pillar to Minecraft's design, I feel, is Minecraft's use as a social, intrinsically motivated experience. There's many things in the game that you aren't doing for extrinsic rewards, like becoming more efficient or earning resources or different kinds of rewards, but rather because they're mechanics that are intrinsically motivating to interact with in their own right. Using dyes on different kinds of blocks or banners, using building blocks, telling stories, creating books and quills, breeding rabbits and foxes, making mud blocks, or going out for new wood types, and yes, hanging signs, camels, functional bookshelves, and bamboo blocks. None of these things unlock mechanical possibilities of things that you couldn't do before necessarily. They're just cool, neat things that you may want to interact with in the world for the sake of themselves. What I don't think many realize about the themes of this update is that I do not believe the update's main thesis to be one about mechanical utility, but rather about emergent aesthetic. Even if these new features themselves don't do much to extend mechanical possibility, they do absolutely extend players' abilities to express themselves mechanically, to interact with one another, to tell stories, to roleplay, to socialize, to represent their cultures or even create new ones, and to bond with each other. Minecraft is not a game that is purely utilitarian in design, and in fact, video games themselves aren't very utilitarian. We play Minecraft for the intrinsic joy of playing the game, not because we get a material reward or function for interacting with it. We don't get a paycheck unless you're a YouTuber. Basically, it's art. There is no purpose for any of it outside of itself, and that's okay. I think we can actually see this philosophy reflected in the mob vote itself as well. The Tough Golem received a lot of criticism for basically being an overglorified item frame. The Rascal plays hide and seek with you and gives you a small reward for doing so, but many players felt it was likely to be super underwhelming. And the Sniffer is a little guy that you hatch from an egg to get flowers, and flowers don't really unlock any mechanical possibilities. However, these mobs absolutely expand the greater abilities for players to express themselves and to create stories or lore for their worlds and to roleplay. The Tough Golems bring aesthetic life anywhere they may be. Their skirts can be recolored and they have a lot of room for interpretation in terms of what their purpose are in your build rather than the purpose that they're supposed to serve mechanically. The Rascal's unique hide and seek mechanics would also ultimately be about the joy of actually playing hide and seek with the Rascal rather than the reward that he may offer that is supposed to motivate players to start playing in the first place. It's not about the reward, it's about playing hide and seek. And the Sniffer's backstory about being an extinct mob in your world also poses some questions about how the mob became extinct, why their eggs are found in underwater ruins, and how the egg survives for that long. Did the Minecraft world flood over? Were they wiped out? And the truth is, there is no correct answer to this question, because the kind of questions that they're meant to pose are to encourage players to essentially make headcanons about their own world. Who built these mine shafts, desert temples, jungle temples? Why are bastions falling apart? Why are there redstone tutorials under the ancient cities center? Who even built these cities? Who came here before you? Why is there wool here? They knew that the skulk was going to be here, or maybe it was built after the skulk showed up? How did the skulk even get here? Where did it come from? Why did they build the city here, and why is the skulk only here? I could go on about this kind of stuff forever, and this update is for the kind of players who think about these kind of things. Let's take the new functional bookshelves as another example. Sure, chests can hold more books, and they can also take redstone signals at the back, and the new functional bookshelves don't provide much in the way as a building block that regular bookshelves don't already offer. But more than that, the working bookshelves are a great example of expanding players' abilities to express themselves mechanically. It's simply cooler to put a book on a shelf than it is to put it in a chest. It's cooler to have hidden switches, and it's cool to create a library full of books written by yourself or by other people. Or perhaps a library that's even completely blank or made up of books that are enchanted for a wizard's lair or any mob in the game. And this isn't to say content won't be added that expands the mechanical possibilities. The camel expands mechanical possibilities in some subtle ways. It's the only land mount in the game that can carry 2 players. It has a dash move, it's efficient on flat land. It prevents mobs from hitting you because you're high off the ground, I guess. But I think focusing too hard on these things misses the point of the camel, which is more to just, well, add camels. Camels are cool, they represent other cultures, and they're a great storytelling tool. As time goes on, I think we'll be able to see more and more of this update as it shapes, but between you and me, if the update was named and they had to show features that are subject to change, it could be something like the history update, since it encourages players to elaborate on the history of their own worlds, and it helps them to create a new history going forward. Archaeology was an idea the team seemed pretty excited about, but that was put on the shelf to be elaborated on later. I don't think archaeology will do much in the way of giving you new loot, but I think it'll absolutely do a lot in the way of giving you cool stuff that's also kind of useless, like clay pots or bones. Perhaps to put in a museum or even an art gallery. I don't think the idea is too far-fetched. Just like archaeology, the Warden was put on the shelf to be elaborated on at a later time, and just saying, the Warden basically got his own update all to himself. Now, with all that said, you may be still saying to yourself, well, I don't care about storytelling in the world or roleplay or building or aesthetics. I care about the grind. I care about farms. I care about brand new features that make more things possible entirely. I care about what the update can do for me. I care about the challenges it can pose, the places it can bring me to, the quality of life improvements that those things themselves bring. And let me level with you. I do too. A lot of role players would be appalled about how I treat my villagers. However, for one, you should care about lore just a little bit. It'll make your builds better, just ask anyone from Hermitcraft. But 2, we just got an update in the Deep Dark, which basically fulfills a lot of those desires. There are a lot of players out there who will legitimately just never go to the Deep Dark because it may be too scary or challenging for them. Most players have never even so much as entered the End Dimension. And while that idea isn't fathomable to me, clearly there's something in the Minecraft world that these kinds of players see that I may not be seeing. I've heard a lot about people who only play in creative mode or only play in peaceful. Players who only use Minecraft to build and express themselves like a virtual Lego set. And yes, even players who basically use Minecraft as a big dollhouse. And thinking about it, that totally makes sense. I'm absolutely positive a ton of kids use Minecraft as a big virtual dollhouse. And it's a cracked dollhouse. It may be silly to say, but as a kid, there's a non-zero chance I used Super Smash Bros. As a form of roleplay self-expression. Just being silly. Don't fight, I offer peace. Or player 3 is passive. You mess with them, you mess with me. In fact, you can see a glimmer of this even in the game itself. If you were to go online and look at the videos people edit together of their games, the best ones are stories or jokes people tell. The ways that people are expressing themselves, rather than just a regular video where Sans whoops Sonic's ass. Do I think Super Smash Bros. Should do more to expand the roleplay or sandbox possibilities in the game? Well, no, not really. That isn't the point of Smash Bros. However, that's absolutely a major goal and pillar in Minecraft's design, and an aspect of the game I think a lot of players find appealing. And to be honest, even if you think you're not that kind of player, you still maybe just a little bit. Maybe you think it's cool when you stumble on another player-made base in an SMP, and that base has lore written about it. Or maybe you enjoy watching documentaries about servers like 2B2T, where I feel the primary appeal is to be part of some kind of grand narrative, to build and destroy, and to be part of history written into those terabytes of data. And to say that you were somewhere, did something, it's neat. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that Minecraft 1.20 is the Gmod RP update.